Thank you so much for watching Landumc Goes There. Please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell notification button. Cactus Flower is a 1969 comedy film that was directed by Gene Saks, and it stars Walter Matthau, Ingrid Bergman, and Goldie Hawn. Hawn went on to win an Academy Award for her performance in the film. The screenplay was adapted by I.A.L. Diamond from the 1965 Broadway play that bore the same name. The film was the 9th highest grossing movie from 1969. Goldie Hawn stars as Tony Simmons, a 21-year-old lost in the city who attempts to commit suicide by gas poisoning after being stood up by her lover, the considerably older dentist, Dr. Julian Winston, played by Walter Matthau. He enjoys his relationship with Tony, partly because he's been pretending to be married with 3 children. In fact, he remains an aging bachelor, but the pretense of marriage serves to protect his time and saves him from making other commitments. His assistant's name is Stephanie, and that's played by Ingrid Bergman. She proves to be a very handy surrogate, not only taking his appointments and chasing patients for their overdue dental fees, but also by covering for the doctor in his absences and also making him sandwiches, chicken and egg salad, which according to Stephanie are the sandwiches that he loves the best. Tony's suicide attempt fails dismally thanks to the keen attention paid by her neighbor, Igor Sullivan, played by Rick Lenz. He's an aspiring writer that's more along Tony's age. When the doctor learns of the incident, he rushes to Tony's side and, realizing the extent of his feelings for her, decides that they should be married. The problem is that Tony absolutely hates lying. Therefore, rather than confessing his ruse, Julian needs a divorce. That plan necessitates a third participant, someone willing to play the role of his soon-to-be ex-wife, at which point enters again Stephanie, played by Ingrid Bergman. The making of this movie was the first time that Miss Bergman had been on a Hollywood soundstage since the 1940s. All of the subsequent films up to that point had been made in Europe. Even those with American studios were done there. The play had been a comeback vehicle for Lauren Bacall, following several years of inactivity once screen roles had dried up for her. Cactus Flower was an enormous hit on Broadway, and Bacall garnered strong personal notices for her performance as Stephanie. She played the role for nearly 2 years. She was understandably disappointed when the producer of the film cast Ingrid Bergman instead for the film version. It's said that the production company offered Tuesday Weld the role of Tony Simmons, and she rejected it, with it eventually going to Goldie Hawn. In the record store, you'll notice where a customer approaches Tony and asks her a question. The album she is holding happens to be the original cast recording of the musical Mame that starred Angela Lansbury. This is an homage to the film's director, Gene Saks, since he also directed Mame when it opened on Broadway in 1966. The cast list for the film is not complete at all. The character of Marcia, Tony's co-worker at the record store, is not credited even though she has almost 2 minutes of screen time and 10 lines of dialogue. Much more than the credited Eve Bruce, and a lot more, for example, than the young man with the beard. The role of Julian Winston was originated on Broadway by Barry Nelson, who is renowned in theater circles for his uncanny ability to freeze a performance following a show's opening and play it exactly the same, beat for beat, for the duration of the run of the production. This was especially evident when he was cast in comedies. He was able to garner laughs in the same places, performance after performance. even when the vehicle ran for several years, as was the case with Cactus Flower. Now, there's a pretty puzzling line that happens when they're in the art gallery and is stated by Walter Matthau's character. Izzy Diamond wrote the scene as it took place in the Guggenheim Museum, and at the time he wrote the screenplay, he had no idea what the exhibit would be when they finally got around to shooting the film. In the screenplay, the two characters are standing in front of a geometric painting, and one of them says to the other, "I bet he cheated and used a ruler." This was basically just a throwaway line to get the scene started. The scene opens, and you see somebody standing in front of a piece of round sculpture, and Walter Matthau makes the statement, "I bet he cheated and used a ruler," which doesn't fit at all for the piece of artwork. It never occurred to anybody on the set, the director, the actor, the script girl, that they should have changed it and made it fit the piece that they were looking at. The line is completely wrong now, and they should have either changed it or threw it out altogether. But this is an example of what happens when people stick too literally to the script. But it also could be argued that this sculpture moment and remark was said just so it would be funny. In the hip nightclub, the music done by Quincy Jones offers an instrumental version of the Monkees' "I'm a Believer" in two separate scenes. Plus an instrumental take on "She Hangs Out" follows the first appearance of "I'm a Believer." Late in the film, when Walter Matthau and Ingrid Bergman enter the dentist office building from opposite sides, Matthau enters at 430 Fifth Avenue, the Crown Building. He is directly across the street from Tiffany and Company, where Audrey Hepburn had her breakfast at Tiffany's from 1961. The drink called the Mexican Missile that appears prominently at the end of the movie actually exists, although the recipe is more than just combining tequila and gin. A Mexican Missile is equal parts gin and silver tequila, plus 6 ounces of orange juice, 1 ounce of grenadine syrup, plus strawberry schnapps, stirred and served over ice. It's said that a couple of these will in fact put you into orbit. This being the first time that Ingrid Bergman had set foot on a Hollywood soundstage in quite a while was pretty impressive. She was a Swedish-born actress that everyone loved. She starred in a dozen Swedish films before eventually making her way to the U.S., where she would soon rise to fame as the new kind of Hollywood star. By the late 1940s, she was a household name in the U.S. and was considered a massive Hollywood heavyweight. The public just adored her for her natural charm, her clean-cut image. But all of that would change in 1950 when she decided to work with Italian director Roberto Rossellini. She had already admired the director for his work and actually wrote to him to ask if there was a possibility that she could be cast in one of his films. That happened in the film Stromboli. During that production, the pair began an illicit affair, despite the fact that both of them were married. Affairs weren't an uncommon thing in Hollywood at the time, but the public was horrified someone like Bergman could be caught up in such a controversy. Bergman states that people looked at her like she was a saint, and she says she wasn't. She was just a normal woman. She found the affair splashed across pages and pages of newspapers and tabloids, and the details just got juicier and juicier. In an instant, her reputation was destroyed. Her movie offers, brand deals, and studio connections in the U.S. disappeared in a heartbeat. With few options left for work in the U.S., she left and went to Italy to live with Rossellini. Eventually, after a period of years, all this somewhat blew over, and there was an increased rebirth of this famous star. She went on to continue to star in American films for a couple of decades until her death in 1982. This is a pretty fun film to watch. I'd never seen it before, and when I sat down to watch it, I wasn't really sure what to expect. But it's delightful, and you see some really award-winning performances in it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll continue to chase the classics.